Cheapo Consignment store.
Many years ago, when our first son was a toddler, my wife was shopping in a consignment store for kids' stuff. She happened to see a lady bringing in a bunch of stuff to sell to the store, and overheard the conversation. This woman had multiple bags of Thomas the Tank Engine toys and track, as well as one of the train tables. If it was new on the shelf, it would be several $100s worth of stuff. The employee working there offered her a lowball offer, saying $100 is the most I can offer. If you think you can get more, you are going to have to find a buyer yourself. My son was a huge Thomas the Tank Engine fan, and my wife's eyes lit up.
My bargain-hunting wife immediately went over and said, "I think you just found a buyer. Will you take $200 for all of it?" The employee got mad and said they weren't allowed to conduct business inside the store. So my wife helped her carry it out to the parking lot, and gave her $200 for a ridiculous number of Thomas the Tank Engine toys that my son, and eventually his younger 3 siblings, played with for years. Great story. That's why it's important to have the decision maker present as well as the cash to take advantage of opportunities. Luckily your wife had the cash and she knew that it was a great score and was decisive enough to act on it. I remember going to the Habitat for Humanity store to look for flooring with my wife. They wheeled out some nice hardwood floor and there was a guy ahead of us who expressed an interest. He went to grab his son to check it, then went off to call his wife. Lots of BS, and they wanted $200 for, I think. After 5 minutes of that I just told the employee, "Look, I'll take it right now for that price." Other guy just conceded and that was it.
I wonder how much the consignment store would have sold this stuff for. No doubt more than the $200 your wife offered. I was at a garage sale where they were selling a very nice version of those tables for toy trains and a bunch of wooden train stuff to go with it, some brand name some off-brand, for $100. This lady was haggling the price and talking with her friend on the phone about whether or not to buy it. I swooped in and bought it for the asking price. Got 10 years out of that set before we passed it on to someone else.
Thomas toys are expensive as hell. That employee probably thought the store was about to make a killer profit. Then your wife swooped on in and got an amazing deal, which would have probably seemed like an amazing deal to the other mom as well. This is a great story, smile.
Worked at a GameStop. Can confirm there are legal liability issues which drive store policies like that, but a consignment shop's whole business model is buy low, sell high. If their buy is too low, they're sell. Good job on making the snag.
I have done the same thing at pawn shops and the like over the years. If the offer from the store is at least semi-reasonable, I stay out of it, but I have seen offers that are 10% of the value and then bump into the seller and then compete the sale outside. I get it. That is how you make your money, but you do not need a X5 return on every transaction. I did the exact same thing at a used instruments store. A guy came in with a really nice guitar, and they offered him next to nothing for it. It was basically the guitar that I wanted, so I offered him slightly more, and he sold it to me instead. I did something similar at a used entertainment store. I was at the CD listening booth, and I overheard a guy bring a bunch of records in a milk crate to sell. The store staff didn't want them, so I asked him if I could buy them. The store employer shooed us out, and I bought the records from the guy in the parking lot. I even gave him a check. Haha, say yes.
Many years ago.
This is a story about knowing what you have. A friend of mine and I went to a Habitat for Humanity second-hand store and they were selling Magic: The Gathering repacks. Someone's old collection packaged up into smaller chunks.
About 30 cards a pack.
For $6 a pack, which is less than the price of a new booster of cards in my country.
My friend buys one.
He's looking through it and they're all older cards but in near mint condition. As he's flicking through I say, "Wait, a couple of cards back.
Wasn't that a Badlands?"
Sure enough, there was a Badlands in there. which is a card that resells around $200. He ends up buying 3 more packs and I buy the rest. About 5 packs. In the end, I end up with about 2 full sets of Tron lands. My friend got 4 sets, 2 scroll racks, and 2 vampiric tutors, among other cards. All told, a few $100s worth of cards each. It was a good day. Happened to be in music store one night before closing back in '96 talking to one of the managers. A guy came in looking to sell Nin PHM and Broken on vinyl. At the time the best price he could give was $3 a piece. He knew I liked them and said if I wanted to counter I could. I had a $10 and guy seemed happy about it. The manager told me they would have been way more than $5 if I waited to buy them from him. As someone who used to work at multiple consignment locations, this unfortunately happens all the time. As buyers, we were forced to offer way less than items were worth because of corporate store policies. We understood that many people were only selling these things out of desperation, need for quick cash. But we could not offer more than we were allowed within the parameters. It's an awkward situation because, again per policy, we were not allowed to permit any sales within the store that weren't processed through our POS system. I know it may seem like the individual buyers are trying to lowball people or enforce seemingly arbitrary rules that disenfranchise sellers. But these folks are likely getting paid not much above minimum wage to handle buying, selling, and handling very awkward customer interactions, all usually without a proper manager around to support them or explain to upset customers why the rules are what they are. These stores also got secret shopped a lot, so we had to be very vigilant about enforcing rules like no customer-to-customer transactions inside the store. Sounds like your wife was totally reasonable in this situation. I just think more people should know that it is not the buyer themselves trying to screw the seller over. It's the capitalism. I always keep a $100 bill folded and ticked away in my wallet. It's been there so long I forget I have it. In reality I should have 5 $20. That's because larger bills are looked on so suspiciously these days. I scored an OG Xbox the same way. When they were still new and Halo had just launched. I was at my local game store, and the guy in front of me wanted to trade his in for cash. The clerk explained they don't do that,
and only do store credit.
If he wants cash he'll have to pawn it or something. The guy said he tried, but the pawn shop only offered him $80. He left dejected. I quickly paid for my purchase, and caught up with him in the parking lot. I said,
"Would you take $100 cash?"
Quote, "That was all I had on me." He agreed happily, and I went home and fired up my new Xbox that I had to convince my girlfriend at the time I didn't spend $300 on,
which was the MSRP at the time.
Good for the wife.
Worked at a well-known video game store for years and I'd have people offer to buy trade-ins instead of it coming to us all the time. Never really cared, but I did tell them they had to take it off the property to do it.
Nice.
I did something similar in a Michael's craft store years ago. A guy was trying to return an expensive Copic marker set with a receipt, but the cashier wouldn't take it for some reason. I walked up at the end of their conversation. She would only give him $54 on a $200 set, so I offered $100 and bounced with a gift my daughter loved. Bought my PSP from a dude for $20 in a GameStop that was offering him $4 because it had a crack in
the edge of the screen.
I also had a friend who bought a PS3 and games from someone who was being stiffed by GameStop and gave them like $300 for it. Both of these transactions occurred in the store, in front of the employees. It reminds me of when my son was small. He was absolutely mad for TTE things. I found someone interstate whom was selling a huge quantity of railway stuff, but had listed it as pickup only. I ended up convincing the seller that it was worth unboxing up and that I would pay the excessive postage to get it here.
I eventually paid $400 for it all,
and a further $150 in postage to get it here. But when I got it open, it worked out that had I bought it all individually,
I would have had to spend $400 just to get the engines alone.
Assuming they were even in production anymore, the tracks would have netted me a further $1,000. Fast forward a handful of years to now, and we still have them and my son still brings them out from time to time. Lol, nice. My wife brought a nice playpen and high chair to a consignment store and they lowballed her too. She walked out with it and was approached by a woman who overheard the convo and followed her out. She sold them to that woman right outside the shitty store.
I noticed someone went through and downvoted such a wholesome thread.
Every single comment. So I went through every single GD comment and gave y'all upvotes. Everyone gets an upvote.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.